We're starting at verse 24 of chapter 16. We just heard that wise words comes from the heart. Now we hear in 24, pleasant words are a honeycomb. Honeycombs are yummy, and they're good for you. There's a story with Saul's son Jonathan, where he and his soldiers eat from a honeycomb, and they're strong enough to defeat their enemies in battle because they had this good food. Anyway, pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. We just talked about wise words and how they produce acts of love and responding acts of love. Now we're talking about pleasant words, something he just talked a few verses before about pleasant words. Pleasant words, words that are kind and gentle, words which encourage. These cause health. It may not be an apple a day that keeps the doctor away. It may be loving statements that keep the doctor away. There's encouragement in pleasant words, in speaking about our love for others and how valuable they are to God and valuable to us. And so this actually makes them feel better, not just mentally and emotionally, but the mental and emotional has an effect on the physical. You know, modern biology will talk about hormones imbalances and depression, and causes you to get colds because your immune system goes down when you're depressed, and things of this nature. When you use pleasant words like honey, and honey is, by the way, does seem to have some healing properties. It brings up your immune system. It causes your body to heal more quickly. It causes your blood to flow. I mean, it just is a good thing. So we have the power. We're not all doctors, but we all have the power to say nice things to other people, to follow that advice of Mom, right? That if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. And then to follow the advice of Luther, say something nice. And that's the advice of Solomon here. 25. There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death. A very apropos saying for our time. It may seem right to man that they should have young people live in the same house as a family for a time without giving the promise of marriage and seeking the blessing of God to make the two into one. This is called, it was called living in sin. It's called living outside of marriage in a state which should be married. This to men seems like a wise thing because we've got to try it out. See if we're compatible. See if we can actually hook up into one. The problem with this is we see in reality that when you live together before marriage, you break apart in marriage most often. We see that when you live together before marriage, it encourages idea of a lack of permanence, particularly in the hearts of men. This is a test thing. And when trials and temptations occur, you're not ready to hold on to each other and to hold on to the promises of God. No, it's like a business partnership. You dissolve it. Marriage falls apart and you have all the consequences of having lived in a way which symbolized that you wanted to be together forever, but in actuality that didn't happen. So this idea of man, which we thought is good, and it seems reasonable, it seems that you ought to test something out, that's this important before you make a permanent commitment. How can you know for certain that permanence is a good thing? Particularly when we see so many cases where it's not permanent. But what we see in the reality is it is better when people get married. Yes, because of sin, occasionally, even if they get married first, there is a breaking apart. Man puts asunder what God put together. But not nearly as often. And not nearly for as trivial reasons. And the relationship between the man and the woman is better when a commitment is made right up front and the man is saying, I am going to look out for your interests, and the woman is saying, I'm going to put you as the head of the household and look out for your interests. And so when the things of the world come along, they have that commitment, they have God's help, they have this design, and they can go back and look to the ring and the marriage and say, no, I did make a promise. Yes, I have kids and they are essential, but my husband is still more important than my kids. Or, yes, my job is what feeds us and keeps us going, but my wife is still more important than my job. And they have a place to go back to say, I know this is true because we made that vow. God put us together. So when you have an idea and you're a man and it goes against the ideas of God, yes, it seems right, but it isn't. The ideas of God are right, and that's just how it is. So here as it says, there is a way that seems right to man, but in the end, that way leads to death. I mentioned marriage. You could mention all sorts of other things. Changing of sexuality, not paying your taxes, not respecting authority, not accepting the vocation you're given and the place in life that you're given, but coveting what others have, trying to tear them down so you can take that place for yourself or so that they're not above you. All of these things which seem right to us, all of these philosophies and ideas which are so worked out by our rationality, they lead to death. The things of God lead to life. 26. The laborer's appetite works for him. His hunger drives him on. This is not true, but I'm going to say it anyway. Greed is good. Greed is not good because that's the love of money and it leads to evil. But hunger, appetite, can be good. So from that sense, the statement greed is good was right. It comes from a movie back in the 80s. Anyway, Wall Street, I think? Anyway. The laborer's appetite works for him. If I'm hungry, I'm going to work so I can get something to eat. If I have no hunger, I would like to lie in a hammock reading a book. Right? If I weren't being paid to be a pastor, even though I enjoy being a pastor, and I love doing this, and I think it's highly important, would I be driven to do the things which are difficult, which aren't fun, which, I don't know, probably not. I'd probably procrastinate. But I do have a hunger, and my wife has a hunger. And this drives me forward into working hard and into doing the things which are good. And that happens to actually be better for my life, and it actually makes me happier to do the things which are good, to not procrastinate, to get done those things which are part of my work. So a laborer's appetite works for him, his hunger drives him on. And his life is better for that hunger. Now he needs to feed the hunger eventually, right? But his life is better for this driving force. And as long as it doesn't become the center of his life, the love of money is the root of all evil. You cannot trust in both mammon and God. As long as it doesn't replace God as the center, doesn't replace God's plan as the most important, it's a good thing to be hungry, to be driven, to have an appetite, to seek out that which is better. We'll stop there.